annexation or not annexation.
TIF area.
TIF area being expanded right now. I think that Eric and I have talked about with a new comp plan or possibly in the future economic development plan, and the RDC having a chapter in that plan, that would be the best time for us to discuss expansions and that kind of stuff.
Kimberly Black has spent a lot of time on this and hoping to get some Okra funding to help us with that comp plan. But I think it's important as we move forward that we all are on the same page. We understand, exactly what our vision is, how we want to move forward. So fingers crossed, we'll get that Okra grant and we'll be able to have that comp plan put in place. So.
And since our attorney's not here tonight, she had texted me earlier this morning. She is very sick. So I told her not to even attempt it, that I would text her if we had any questions or problems that comes up. And I had also, just bringing up that statement, I did ask her to research on us possibly purchasing properties within the area, downtown area, but outside of the TIF district. So that is in the process of being looked at.
Okay.
So
okay.
Just information.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that reads, so she can do the research on that. Okay, that's all I had.
I just want to say one thing in regards to the TIF. I have had a conversation with the superintendent, so he is aware of the possibilities. And his only statement to it was that he wants to make sure that the schools are included in the conversations that we need to be included in.
Exactly.
And that it doesn't.
And I go with the mayor. We need to probably take a good look at a feasible study of how it's going to impact.
And he's aware of that. It's just that we just want to make sure that I know I am here, but yet he may attend the meetings and go from there. And then he's also interested in the possibility on the comp plan that the schools are an integral part of that.
Okay.
And that we want to make sure that he is. If not, either he will attend or Scott, who's basically the financial guy for the schools. And
we did do a survey within the community, and education was one of the things that was mentioned in that survey. So right now we're just trying to see if we're going to get the Okra grant for funding, and then after that we'll move forward.
Well, it's an integral thing of concern for the schools simply because of our unfortunate losing so many students, which is costing us almost $1.25 million of lost revenue. So we are pinching pennies.
Yes, I understand that. And from being in the conversations last week at AIM, it's pretty substantial.
It is, and it looks like we're going to be taking a look at our manpower. To make things better.
Yeah.
All right.
Or maybe changes.
Yeah.
I still don't know if it'll be significant, but we can hope for it, right?
Yeah. Well, we always want the best. I mean, we're here to offer the best for our students and our staff, and also for the city. I mean, as the schools go, so does the city, and we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Exactly. We all have to work together.
Absolutely.
It's a struggle for all of us right now. So, okay. Well, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Any questions for the mayor? Okay. All right. Our biggest presentation is probably going to be with Reedy. Justin is welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to see you. If you'll step up here and I'll let you take over.
Yes. Before I start, they all have the presentation and the spending plan, or I printed copies out, so no worries. Okay. So I can hand those out.
First. Make sure we get them handed out.
Yes. Okay, so there'll be 3 different copies of everything. One of them is a financial plan. That's just a financial update that we provided as of, I believe these are as of July 31st. So and I'll go over that first, and then we have the TIF spending plan, which is a new reporting requirements that started last year. It's sort of like a mini budget for the RDC. It's like sort of like what the city does, but not entirely. The process is very different. I'll go over that in the middle of the financial plan because I'll have 5 extra copies for the resolution and the impact presentation.
So I might chop liver.
My apologies.
I'll share.
Yeah, sure.
I thought you already knew that, bud.
Now everybody knows, right?
I had extra copies, but I wrote notes.
Yeah, don't know.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so introduce myself. I'm Justin. I believe I've met a few of you before, but that was 3 years ago. And so I've been working with Reedy for over 4 years, almost 5 years now. I was here in 2022 and had to go back to Taiwan while waiting for my green card and all that. But throughout this process, I've still been working with Reedy, and I've done quite a bit of Frankfurt planning for the TIF, so I have a good understanding of the RDC. So if there are any questions on projects or expenditures revenues, I'd be happy to answer. But like I mentioned earlier, let's start with the plan, the TIF financial plan. And I know most of you have seen this many a time, so I'm not going to go over everything from front to back. So we can go ahead and go into page 3, which is the details of everything, the numbers, the fund tab. This is the consolidated TIF area, is the big TIF of the RDC. Just a couple items to note if we look at the TIF revenue collections for 2025. Currently, we have $1.3 million, and we're projecting 2.2. The 2.2 is a conservative estimate. We normally take a few percent off the top in case there are delinquencies, etc. So that 2.2 will likely be higher, which is why we collected over half of our TIF revenues in June. We might look closer to 2.5 or 2.6. But that'll depend on December settlement. Gary and I did add the police car purchase, the SSA grant match, and the firefighter salaries to the financial plan. Those are the red columns over there that you see. One item to note for the firefighter salary, which we will see on the next page, is that we have a 5% kicker to that every year, or a 4 to 5% kicker to that every year. So that's why that number goes from 422,000 next year to 443. And that's a new addition to what we can spend on for the TIF starting this year, where we're allowed to spend on fire and police, both operating and capital for fire and police. Another item to note, if we look in the top right corner, there's that Senate Bill 1 implications. That's essentially what we project the RDC to see a reduction in revenues every year. But you'll see we actually jumped from expected 2.2, 2.3 this year to $4.1 million next year. That's mainly due to a significant increase in, I believe, the personal property side of the TIF. So we'll see that in the impact presentation as well. So we're seeing nearly a doubling in TIF revenue starting in 2026. One caveat to that is abstract comes out in March. So we are not 100% sure of those numbers until then, but because it's such a huge jump, we do want to include that in there. So as we're looking at planning for projects that we know there's going to be a bit more than that $2.3 million that we used to project, right? And due to SB1, and we could actually flip to the next page, page 4, due to SB1, we still expect revenues to slightly decrease until 2030, which is why you'll see that 4.1 decreases to 3.9, 3.7, and it plateaus there. And the main reason is because most of the RDC's revenues come from personal property, and that really shouldn't have much impact afterwards. But as we can see, if gross AV grows enough, that really can negate the impact of SB1. But to be conservative, to be safe, make sure we don't over budget our TIF dollars. We try to keep that amount lower than what it potentially could be. Are there any questions on these two pages for the consolidated area? No? Okay. The next is the ConAgra, and this TIF really it's seen a lot of revenues, but it's not seen a lot of action since it began. But starting in 2026, the RDC is actually going to start collecting revenues from this. Bless you.
Thank you.
The RDC will actually start collecting revenues from this. How this is calculated is next year's projected revenues, 5% will be collected, but half of that will be split to the county. So technically, it's 2.5% of that $2.6 million will be kept by the RDC, and 2.5% to the county. So that's what that $133,000 is in projected 2026 county shares, and it'll go up to 10% in 2027. So that number will jump up significantly through the next few years. Any questions on that? Okay. So before we go over the rest of the financial plan, can we just go to the TIF spending plan real quick, because that all ties together, and the TIF spending plan is really just based off the financial plan, and that this is the one that it looks like. The first page is really just a letter header. We're technically supposed to present this to the council and to the mayor, which she's here today. Present this as and we can email it to them or include it in their packets at their meeting. And then afterwards, we're supposed to upload this to DLGF. So to make it look professional, we included this letterhead to show, hey, this is a spending plan. This is what we're providing to them. Second and third pages are the resolutions that we'll need to sign after the meeting. This is just to say the RDC has passed the spending plan, and this too will be uploaded onto DLGF. And like I mentioned, this is pretty new. First one was last year. This is just the second reporting. Do keep in mind that this can be changed next year. And so if let's just go to the next page, and that's the actual spending plan. If you look, some of these numbers are much higher than what is on the actual financial plan, and that is by design. And like I mentioned earlier, this plan can be changed and updated next year if we do expect new expenditures to come up that we weren't projecting for this year. But to do that, you'll need me to come to another meeting, prepare all these documents again. So what we did is we took this year's expenditures and we added a bit more to it. So if you look at that debt payments of 4.4, that's more like 3.8 or 3.9, I believe, if we add up the debt payments from the two funds, but we added a 15% buffer just in case something comes up. And similarly with capital expenditures and the rest of them, we added a little bit more to them just in case anything comes in. You don't need to pay me to come here to do this presentation again. And if we look at some of these expenditures, a lot of them are actually planned that we are planning for this year, right? Like the debt payments. If we combine ConAgra and consolidated, that's $3.9 million. That capital and operating for police/fire, that's the firefighter salary. So that's most of these are planned expenditures with just a little bit extra on top. So that's the TIF spending plan. Again, after this meeting, this will need to be presented to the mayor and city council and uploaded to DLGF, which I'll work with Wanda on. But are there any questions on that? No? Okay. There isn't a whole lot left on the financial plan. The next two pages are contracts and the facade grant trackers. Contracts, that's just the IU Health incentive that we're currently paying. I believe that ends in 2026. So we keep track of that on here to make sure we're on track on all our contracts. If there's any new ones that come up for the RDC, we'll make sure that it's included in here as well. And the RDC historically has done some facade grants, which is why we included this tracker here. There isn't currently any that we know of. So this page is blank, but as they come through, we'll make sure they're included. Yep. If there are no questions on the plan, the TIF spending plan and the financial plan, we could go to the impact presentation, which is this horizontal presentation. If we go to the second page of that, it's the reporting requirements. This This page lists all the reporting requirements that the RDC is required to perform every year. You'll see the 4 check marks are the reporting requirements that we've already done. The 2 that are left, which we're doing today, are the December 1st spending plan and the December 31st end of year TIF impact presentation, which is this current presentation that we are doing. The impact presentation is sort of like to give underlying units an overview of the TIF. So what allocation areas do we have? What are the incremental AVs, financial positions, and at the end of it, I'll present what the impact of the TIF. If we go to the next page, that page lists the allocation areas that we have, when they were created, and when we expect them to expire, as well as the pay 2025 incremental AVs. I realize 2025 is almost over. That information isn't super helpful, but that's required to be provided. I did grab the pay 2026 incremental AVs just as information, just for informational purposes. Again, these could change next year, but for the consolidated TIF, instead of $70.7 million, we're looking closer to $134 million next year in incremental AV. And for ConAgra, instead of 72.9, we're looking at $94 million. As a total, instead of that $143.6 million that you see in incremental AV, it'll be closer to $228 million based on the parcel list that we're currently seeing. So a pretty significant jump, given the fact that SB1 just started to kick in. Next page, how TIF works. I'm sure most of you have seen this quite a few times already. Just quickly go over it. When we establish a TIF, the NAV that's part of those parcels is in the base AV, which means they still belong to the underlying units. As we provide incentives to corporations to come and develop in our area. ConAgra is a really good example. We provide them this incentive. They come in and build a plant or whatever the development is. All that increase in AV will go towards the TIF allocation areas. And since there are bonds outstanding, 25 years is the clock of the TIF. So after 25 years of bond closing payable by the TIF revenues, the TIFs will expire and all that incremental AV will go back to the underlying units. Yeah. The next page, that is the financial positions, which is essentially what we just saw in the financial plan, with a very simplified summary version of what the beginning year cash balance is for the TIF funds, revenues, expenditures, end of year cash balance. That should tie pretty closely to what is on the financial plan. And for ConAgra, since this year all of the TIF revenues are still being used to pay the ConAgra bonds, that end of year balance will always be zero. And some upcoming projects that we have highlighted that we would talk with Joe and the mayor with, we're looking at downtown and sidewalk projects, facade grants, and fire protection, but also police protections, because we're looking at the police car purchases. The next page, this is so it says it's a TIF impact question page. The TIF impact the impact to the underlying units, it's not a true impact, which is why we like to set this presentation up, or the next part up with this page, because as we all know, Indiana is a levy-driven state, so no matter what our assessed values do, our levies stay the same. AVs go up, what changes is the tax rates. So if AVs go down, tax rates will go up. In this instance, what it's saying is if we were to not, for example, ConAgra, if we were to not provide the incentives to ConAgra and they still came and did their development and developed here in Frankfurt, what would the underlying units have received in either addition to property tax revenue or a reduction in property tax, a reduction in circuit breaker, which, given the slightly higher tax rate environment that we are in, most of that is actually in circuit breaker reductions. So if we go to the next page, if you see in the middle, the light blue color, the first column, that's a circuit breaker impact. So if the incremental AV would have happened without the incentives provided by the RDC, and they all went to the underlying units. So that $134 million, I believe, if they all went to the underlying units, this would be the projected reduction in circuit breaker for each unit. And as you can see, the unit that's affected the most is the city itself, with a circuit breaker impact of 1.2 million. So a total circuit breaker impact of $1.8 million. 1.2 of that would have gone to the city. Second would have been Frankfurt Community School at 263,000. And like I mentioned, we're a levy-based state, so even if that AV was to go to the underlying units, tax rate would just decrease. The levy would not have changed. Second column over there is a rate-driven funds impact. That's looking at the cumulative funds, so the CCD fund for the city, for example. That would actually be a real impact to the city, where if the TIF incremental AVs were to go to underlying units, that 69,535 would be the increase in levy the city would have received, because the CCD is a rate-driven fund. So, a total of $1.9 million would be the impact between circuit breaker and rate-driven funds, with a $4.6 million in TIF revenues. And if we go to look to the right over there, we show what the budgets are for each unit. And if we look at that impact, it's really minimal for most units. For Frankfurt is the highest. It's a 7% of Frankfurt's total budget is the impact. For the school is 0.7%, so not even 1%. The second highest would have been Center Township at 2.89% of their total 2025 budget. So in reality, most of that impact is to the city itself, and it's pretty minimal to the underlying units. The next page is a sort of a concept that we came up with. It's called the TIF margin. What it means is for every $1 that the TIF received, how much of that is due to the RDC's utilization of TIF, how much of that would have gone to underlying units in terms of circuit breaker reduction or increase in rate-driven funds levy. 57 cents means that for every dollar that the TIF receives, 57 cents of that is due to the utilization of the TIF. 43 would have gone to the underlying units in circuit breaker impact. If we look at it for the TIF as a whole, the TIF is expected to receive $4.6 million in 2025. 2.6 of that is because we utilized a TIF allocation areas, and 1.9 would have been shared across all the units in circuit breaker impact, was about 1.3 of that being the city's own impact. So that concludes the impact presentation, spending plan, and the financial plan update. Are there any questions for me? Okay. Well, there's not any. I can step down. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any comments between us on the presentation?
Are these anticipated costs and so forth? I mean, are these going to happen or could happen?
Could. I would always say could.
Well, I'm just saying, we talked about a couple of things that the schools will receive, $200,000 here. To us, that's a large sum of money. And, I want to make sure that we're aware of that and doing everything that we can to minimize that. But if this is just we're throwing spitballs out there and throwing numbers, or are these actual numbers that can be based and quantified as adequate?
Are you asking on the spending plan itself?
Yeah, well, you mentioned a couple times and did mention the schools, but then you said that if was mentioned a couple times. You used the word if, and if means maybe.
Well, we always like to throw a little bit of buffer in our projections right. Again, most of that is just because we don't want the RDC to have to redo the TIF spending plan next year and have us come in. But again, most of these are based on actual expenditures that we've had conversations with the RDC and the mayor on that the TIF is actually planning to spend on, and most of which is actually our debt payments. Almost $4.5 million of that are debt payments, which are obligations of the RDC that they have to spend on.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, we're in the midst of budgets now ourselves. And so we're planning on the next year and even into 27. And we want to make sure that we are aware of what our challenges will be.
Yep. And that $200,000 that I mentioned for the school, that's actually a reduction. That's a reduction in circuit breaker. That wouldn't be an increase in levy on the school's end. Yep.
Thank you.
I will say that John and I was in what we call our budget hearing and discussed the budgeting for the 26 expenditures. That was all included in this. John, you got anything you want to add on it?
No. And to echo Bud's comments, it's concern on what the impact is on the schools. I understand his position on that.
Yeah. So, and like I said earlier, anything we do as far as looking at expansions and stuff like that, will take the school into impact on it.
I hope so. I'm sure you will. But it's extremely important to us right now since, for the last few years, we have seen a reduction in our population. And that means it's $7,000 basically per student. And we're down 160 from last year.
And I know you and I had that conversation here recently. And
Yes.
it falls back to the state. I'm not going to go national. I'll just say the state level's the ones that create these monsters.
No, and I understand that. And we do too.
Same way with Senate Bill 1. I mean,
Yeah.
Hopefully, I sometimes wonder how they think. So the state level.
Well, our biggest concern is that, yes, we're losing so much money per student, but that also accounts for the possibility of, and we will see a riff of teachers and other policies or programs that we currently are providing, and that it's impacted by the dollars that are coming in. And so if we are anticipating a loss for next year, we've got to know now so we can budget that in.
You always got to prepare. So.
Easier said than done sometimes, Joe.
Okay. If there's no other questions on Reedy, claims, did everybody get a chance to look at the claims?
Yeah, signed them. I'd like a motion to approve the claims as presented.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second to accept the claims as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Abstain.
Aye.
Claims passed. New business. I have on the agenda, Dan Pry with Frankfurt Main Street. He'd step up to the podium and Dan is going to explain a program that they have been working on. John and I went through the program a few months back, wasn't it?
Yes.
So we wanted him to bring the information to us and we can readdress it again in November's meeting, so.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today. Again, I'm Dan Fry. I'm on the board of directors for Frankfurt Main Street. I'm also the chairperson for the Economic Vitality Committee. Our main focus is to educate, empower, and engage with the downtown businesses. And the program that I wanted to talk to you about today this is a draft form, so there's certainly flexibility with this program. The idea was for us to get this to you today, give you an opportunity to look at it, and then we would come back hopefully next month and be able to answer any questions that you might have about the program. We've titled it Business Plan Competition Rental Assistance Grant Program. That's kind of a mouthful, so we may be coming up with a different name for the program. And we say rental assistance program, but really, as you'll see, the funds could be spent for any new business that's looking at starting in the downtown historic district was the idea. We're trying to drive new business growth to the downtown area, trying to make sure that storefronts are getting filled with new businesses. We've had pretty good luck with that this year, I think, downtown, with several new businesses that have either moved down there or started up. The grant use could be used to start up the relocation costs. It could be used for lease or rental purposes. It could be used for renovations for a new business. So we've intentionally tried to keep this fairly flexible for the businesses so they can use it as they need to help. With new business startups, as I'm sure you all know, that's the funding of that is always a challenge for those businesses. So hopefully this program would assist those folks in being able to get their business off the ground successfully. The idea is there's an application that's in the back of the packet that would be filled out. These folks would come before a group of folks. We would certainly love to have someone from the RDC participate in that process, to have them present their business plan, present what their business would do, and then a pitch night, if you will, of why they should be considered for these funds. And then that group would make a selection of that individual business, and then they would get the funding to help support their business as part of that startup. Built into this is if that business were to relocate or close within 12 months, they would be responsible for paying any funds they had received back. So we've tried to build in some stopgaps that way that would encourage the businesses to stay in the downtown area. And if not, then we would get the funding back from that. We're requesting that this group consider $40,000 of funding. That would allow us to do two $20,000 grants for businesses to start up. So that's the request that we have. Certainly, we would like you to consider that. And then next month, we certainly can answer any questions that you have about the program. Or how that might work. And like I say, we've left the funding part of that blank in the program pending, what that turns out and how we can support the program. So I'd be happy to answer. I know you haven't had a chance really to look at it, but if you have any questions specific at this point, I'd be happy to try to address those. If not, you all can review the program that we sent out, and then we can discuss that next meeting if you have questions.
I have a question, Dan.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of any other areas where this has been used?
Well, I know when we first started talking about that, there were some other cities. I think this program is actually based on a program, I want to say maybe that Kim got from Columbus, I want to say. And I know there were some other cities that had these types of rental assistance programs that we based this particular document off of that have had success with those programs. So yes, we did look at some other programs that have been in place.
Has Main Street had anybody in the past that's approached you about any kind of assistance?
Well, we work with businesses today and trying to assist them with business plans and so forth. So yes, I know we've had some folks who have come, and really our role is to make them aware of things that are available, like the facade grants and things like that we currently make businesses aware of. This would simply be another program that we could use to assist those businesses starting up. But yes, I do know we've had businesses that are considering coming down or relocating downtown that are looking for ways to, start up money, if you will, to get going.
And would this only be for new businesses coming in, or could an existing business apply?
The way we have it set up right now, an existing business could also, if they were going to expand, for example, the Hope Collective just opened the other side of their business. That might have been an example of somebody that was already there, but might have been able to apply for funds to expand their business. So it could be either or.
I'm sure it's in here, but who's on the selection committee, and does the RDC have a seat at that table in this?
Yeah, it would be board members from Main Street, and we would like to have someone from this group participate in that selection process as well.
Yeah, we could go up to 2 board members on it.
So yeah, we'd love to have that.
Is this set up to be a match of funding, such as someone presents you with a $40,000 startup business plan and 20 is a 50% match of that? Or is this unrestricted as far as the funds being used?
Yeah. This is set up as unrestricted right now, but with the caveat that the business has to stay for at least 12 months in order to keep the funding or they would pay it back. That's how it's set up currently.
It's basically for rental assistance. It's not for renovations or that sort of thing.
It could be for either.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, we've tried to keep it fairly open-ended so that the funds could be used as needed, but it certainly could be used for lease or rental. If someone owned the building, it could be used for renovations or those kinds of things as well.
I'm not into insurance. Well, I own a lot of it seems like, but is there a possibility that a company could get a bond or something through an insurance agent that would protect them on the fee that they get from this if something happens to their business within, what's the date or what's the length on it? You said a year?
Yes, the thought was that it would be $20,000, that could be paid out monthly in equal increments. That way, if something did happen to the business, you wouldn't be going,
Yeah,
after
they'd
the whole
have to pay
thing.
that back.
But whatever they had gotten to date, they would.
I was just curious. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a
If there
good
was-
question. I don't know how
If there's
insurance
a
would.
possibility that they could do a bonding that would protect them, because if they go belly up, they're gonna probably have trouble coming up with the money to pay back
Yeah,
within a certain period. So I'm just throwing that out.
right.
Might be something for you to
Which would
research.
be, I guess, in our mind, a reason to maybe pay that out in smaller increments, monthly or
Sure,
whatever
sure.
that would be, quarterly, however that would work best for the RDC.
So if it's rental assistance,
use your mics.
Are they working?
if it's rental assistance, you're going to pay that out monthly. But if it's for renovation, that's something you could do in a lump sum.
We could write that in this way. It's not currently set up that way for a lump sum.
Okay.
Again, I think partly because the idea was as an assistance to that. And so we could still pay that out over some period of time. We could certainly add that in if you think there's some value in doing that for renovation purposes, doing that in a lump sum.
Yeah. With our facade grants, and this goes back to Eric's question, they got to have skin in the game. They're paying half of it if it involves renovation. Is that something you think, we could require a 50% matching funds on their part?
Sure. I mean, yes, we can, at this point, we can adjust it as we need to. And that would be, again, the other thing would be if you did it in monthly amounts, I think that by the nature of the way that money would be paid out, they would need to have skin in the game, if you will. If we're giving them, I don't know, $1,200 or $1,500 a month with the cost of renovations, that's not going to do a great deal in 1 month, but over a period of time, then that could help offset those costs. So I think they would have to come up with the funds or some way be able to fund that. And then as the money came in, it could offset those costs going forward. But we could certainly build into it a matching component to it.
Yeah, the concept of having Dan come tonight was to lay the program out, give us all the paperwork, let us go back and research. If you got anything you want to change, wording. I mean, your point's very well taken on the
Yeah.
renovation stuff.
Right.
And then we're going to revisit this again in November, just to, I would say, try to either yay or nay the program and for 26. So
The
Yeah,
hardest part of starting a new business is coming up with that money in the very beginning to do renovations and that sort of thing. So I think that would be very helpful if that was a lump sum,
on a renovation type of thing, yeah. And that's where I think the business plan presentation would be helpful from that business as to whether they had funds to already, whether there were a lot of renovations required or whether they were just planning on using those funds for lease or rent or whatever. That would be helpful to have that information, I think, as part of that pitch night.
Well, most small businesses, and John can vouch for this too, probably Eric, but we all, even though we have funds put aside to try to start, it's always a shoelace type thing.
Mhm.
It's always a small amount compared to what it's going to take really to try to do it. So,
Right. Yeah. And I know Kim Stevens has met with a lot of these businesses and trying to help them with promotional types of things, different other programs to help businesses to try to get bodies in their doors, and help their businesses out. So that's another piece of what Main Street tries to provide with the various programs and events and training and those kinds of things that we do.
any more questions for Dan? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Don, you got any new business or you want to fall under old business?
Under old business, sir.
That'll work. Any other new business? Well, we're down there. Let's go to old business. I'll start with you.
All right, brother. Work my way up here.
I want to give you update on the property. I think it's at 308 North Main Street, the Ingram building. A couple of weeks ago, we thought that there were two groups of individuals that were looking to purchase this building. I had made contact with KJB to come in to start doing their analysis of the building. And then when I caught wind that there were two groups that were going to bid on this process, we told KGB to go back to Lafayette and we'd let them know when we needed them. And so nothing was said. I hadn't heard anything. So I sent out this week I received a call from one of the persons that were going to bid on it. And he's withdrawing his bid because he can't make contact with the person who's representing the property owner here in town. They won't return calls, won't accept calls. And so he's withdrawn his bidding process. And so I called the other group after he spoke, and they're not going to bid on it either now. So with all that in mind, I have made contact with an email with the property owner, asking about anybody else who was looking at buying the building. Of course, she wasn't aware of anybody looking at the building. So I basically told her that we would probably start the condemnation process. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to call KJB again back and see if they'll come and do an analysis of the building, and then hopefully be able to present that to this group as far as the what we can do. I haven't made contact with Alicia because of her illness, but we look forward to doing that also as we move towards the process of possibly condemning the building if KJB thinks that's what it is. So I wanted you to be aware that that is now in the process.
Okay, and our offer, as far as I'm concerned, the board can go with it. Our offer still stands on that, but, yeah, whoever buys it, we need to make sure that, and this is just me, but I'm going back to the old ordinance. If it's tore down, it can't just be a gravel lot. It has to be blacktop or
Yeah,
a
it
parking lot.
has to be
So-
hard surface. You're right.
Yes. So, and they've gotten by between them and that lot there between the VFW and across the street has always stayed in a gravel place. So, whoever was trying, they just needed to know that that was part of the game plan on it,
Yeah.
so.
Well, it all fell apart, so we'll move in. I'm tired of dealing with it. It's been about a year now trying to get a building down, but this is
Been harder getting answers. hasn't
well,
it?
this is a typical process when the property owner is out of state.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people in town think that we can just come marching in and rip the building down, and you can't do that. And so now you're making contact with an out-of-state person who doesn't come back, and it becomes very difficult. But we'll start moving on it here soon.
Keep us informed, sir.
Will
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you.
I think next on the thing is Kimberly Black.
Move the mic down. John, did I miss you on paperwork? Probably.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So last month or last meeting, I had brought forth the estimate for Campos Construction for, to make the sidewalk ADA compliant, as well as, make it as safe crossing, or hopefully as safe as we can go, coming from the splash pad and the entrance of Prairie Creek Park. Google can only do so much, so I apologize. My highlighting on the second page is kind of the overview of what, where the sidewalk is or would be, and then the two crosswalks. And Don Stock, as being our ADA coordinator, has seen this, and we've kind of talked about this over the last probably couple months to make sure that we don't have a sidewalk or a crosswalk that just goes into nowhere land, and that it would have a safe landing on the other side of the street. I know Bud's question last month was about the pedestrian flashing signs. Brian already has 2 in stock, and would be happy once this project is underway to put those in, and then to see if we need 2 more, if there's enough of a concern to have 2 more down by the splash pad entrance. So second page is kind of the overview, bird's eye view. And then I went ahead and included on the third page street view to kind of show right now, while there are ADA plates that lead out onto East Washington Street, there's nothing on the, let's see, what side is this? South side of East Washington Street. And so that's the 2 areas that we're looking at putting a crosswalk in. And then, like I said, we'd have to have a secondary, location, landing zone, as I should say, for people to walk across. And then these are dark because we took them at night, but the third page that has the looper shows where the sidewalk currently is. Honestly, it's in such repair that people park on it. There's not a curb really. There's not really anything that divides the parking lot from the sidewalk. And I talked to Christina with Compost, and that would be all fixed at the same time as doing the ADA curbing that would take place if that's something you guys decide to do. So.
Kimberly, what is the need for two separate crosswalks here?
When we have, the need was brought up, after looking at a couple of the concerts over the last several years. Board of Works had brought it to my attention as well, and just not only mine. But there are a lot of people that just walk across East Washington Street at dusk, late at night, when the park is busy, and there's not a designated where you can cross, and they just kind of wander, or try not to get hit by a vehicle. Thankfully, we haven't had any incidences, but if we can try to avoid those, in my opinion, would be the best route to go.
So I get the west side one,
Mhm.
coming right out of the park, going up to an area between the two parking lots. Just justify for me the one to the east. Why two?
There's a lot of people, I'll just throw in there that a lot of people do park in high-tech label
Yes.
parking lot.
Sure, but I think
So-
it's accessible by this one west crosswalk. And it appears, I mean, it's very wide access right now, as you can see from that picture. So I guess I don't see enough distance between the two to justify having two. You know, if it was down past high tech label for some reason, I maybe, but I mean, I'm looking here and it's only 4 parking spots separating them. And then where do we stand as far as running this on to high tech labels lot? Are they going to sign some kind of an agreement?
So right now we have an agreement because we striped the parking lot that we can use it for Prairie Creek Park events. Obviously, I do my neighborly due diligence and let him know when we are, using the lot. But on a regular basis, when the street parking is full, when the splash pad is full, we don't necessarily police it to say you can or cannot, and I don't think the high tech label does the same, as far as who parks in the parking lot and who doesn't on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Well, I understand you put a crosswalk to a sidewalk anywhere
Mhm.
without the property owner being concerned. I just didn't know what kind of agreement there was, because this is definitely an implied use of it.
Mhm.
But my biggest hang up is, as I look at this, we're only 4 parking spot links, when they're parallel, separating these two crosswalks. I just don't know about the added expense for the second one personally.
And the reason to your kind of question of not on the other side of the parking lot is because we have parallel parking. If you look at the third page, that goes to the edge. So we would technically be losing a parking spot if we put a curb and ADA from, if you look on the closest to high tech label, as far as a crosswalk. So
I'm all in on the west one. I think that's fine. I just don't see the justification for the east side. I think it's of adequate width, adequate location coming out of the main area. I don't think you're getting that much coming out of the splash pad like during our concerts. So that's where I'm at on it.
Could there be, talking about the west, how wide is that crossing going to be?
you mean coming off from?
Now, how wide across the road will that be?
John, is there an ADA requirement as far as how wide the crosswalk needs to be?
Usually the crosswalks are about 36 wide, 36 inches wide.
Well, with that potentially the volume of traffic, could it not be made wider?
What you have is a minimum,
Right.
so you can make them as wide as you want.
Well,
That sidewalks look 10 foot wide to me coming off of Prairie Creek
But
Park.
you just gotta make sure that however width you're making, you can put that on the sidewalk on
Right.
the other side.
is there any, have we given any thought to the possibility of reducing the speed limit down through there on Washington Ave, or Washington Street? In that one block area, if you want to call it, from the intersection at Washington Avenue and Washington to Jackson, knocking it down to, I don't know, 15 miles an hour. That would give it, you know, a little bit of something that your police could hang their hat on. But then could we go down through there and put more lighting? I mean, white lighting, street lighting, not the poles, but lighting that could be utilized from solar panels, and they just come on when we need them on. In other words, we flip the switch and that would light up that area. I mean, I'm with Eric. That the second one onto the east, I understand we're going to be using potentially high-tech's parking lot, but I don't know. I think we could get by with the one actually on the west. This is my personal opinion.
And we could always do the one and do the second one later.
That's
Yeah,
what I was
right.
gonna, I mean, if that's
It's not
the,
affecting anything else. You're not gonna change it.
Are we closing the splash pad when there's concerts?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay.
I mean, I think this is a public safety issue, and I appreciate it being looked at. That I've walked across it, held up traffic, so I get it, but I don't know. I think we could try the west one first, personally, see how that works. Save a little money.
and this would be us. I mean, I can see what their schedule looks like if you guys approve one, or the west one, but it may potentially, you're looking at potentially doing this in the springtime, depending on what their schedule looks like to finish out
There's
before it
really
gets
no
too.
hurry till spring.
Correct.
I'll say,
Yeah.
when is your first concert going to be done? The first.
It'll be
of January?
May, yeah. I just wanted to bring this so that way we had time, so that way next year I'm not scrambling or,
Surely not.
but I try not to do that.
Well, I'd be in favor of approving the west crosswalk.
Is that a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the west crossing. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? At least go to the one.
Thank you very
and
much. I
We'll
appreciate
revisit
it.
the other one if need be.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else for Kimberly? Okay, if nothing else, I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.